Welcome to the LaunchFamily Podcast, where we unpack modern parenting one real conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley, a mom of six, former public school teacher, and your guide through the highs and hurdles of raising kids today. Today's guest is Amy Pierre-Russo, a certified coach, HR veteran, and mom to a toddler who brings deep insight into what working parents really need. With years of experience supporting professionals before, during, and after parental leave, Amy is now building tools, communities, and coaching models that help working parents maximize their time and stay connected to what matters most. Amy, welcome to the show.
Jessica, I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me and thank you for creating this platform.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're having these real conversations around motherhood and parenthood, and so I'm so glad that we can get some additional insights and tips for those listening in today. But I want to start with a little bit of your journey. So can you share how you went from corporate HR to full-time coaching and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, definitely. It's so funny because now looking back, it's like, wasn't this always the plan, like the path? I don't, I don't know. It seems to all just have clicked into place for me. But no, looking back at the time, I landed in HR mostly seeking that connection for people, for supporting people. And that's the part that I loved. I gravitated towards it. And I also, like, noticed the things that were missing in that employee experience. I felt like as I would send parents out on leaves and caring for their families and having additions to their families, they would return with this whole new life and different demands and something they had never experienced before. And while they're figuring that out, they're also having to jump back into their role and their workplace and kind of conform to the situation how it exists without anyone really focused on supporting them for their whole new life. So that was always something that just kind of piqued my curiosity to say the least. And so, yeah, it's what sparked it, at least partly me going and getting certified to be a life and leadership coach so I could work with people one on one and provide that support.
Yeah. What were some of those big gaps? I mean, like if we were to get into like the nitty-gritty and the
Mm,
specifics, like as you're noticing that these new parents or, people that have just welcomed an addition,
mm.
how is that transition coming back and what are those gaps that we can be more mindful of?
Yeah, so the gaps were, I just think no matter how prepared you are for parenthood, you can't know all of the things, you can't plan for all of the things, and unexpected things are going to come up. And so I think that reintroducing yourself into the workforce and your role, there's this level of what I saw a lot of parents kind of ease into their comfort zone or like really needing to not raise their hand for the exciting, challenging work that they were capable of, and kind of getting further and further away from their own aspirations and long term goals. The gaps I saw more tangibly were it taking longer and longer, and maybe sometimes not having the title change, the pay changes that their peers were having even though they were just as smart, just as capable, all of the things. And so I think nowadays, mostly people call it like maybe silent quitting, or maybe not even that far, but just kind of like taking an opportunity to kind of catch your breath in your role. And so it did have these unintended consequences that they couldn't have foreseen at the time when you just return to work and are trying to manage. Like you can't know what's 3 years down the line.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, you're I mean, I'm a mom of 6, and so I remember when I had my first baby and I had just finished up student teaching, and that was, like, one of those things where I was like, I don't even know how I could even focus on my career because 'cause I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to, like, track the feeding and track the diapers and figure out
Yeah.
childcare and, like, all of the other things when caring for someone, literally from sun up to sundown and
Yeah.
through the night, right? In those newborn
Yes.
stages, and so, balancing that with also being able to have the mental capacity to, like, do, project projections or whatever is happening, or, like, planning sometimes is just, like, hard because 'cause you're like, "Oh, well, something else could come up," you know? Uh,
Yeah.
And so I love this point too of kind of redefining what productivity looks like for parents because there is so much that's being managed on both fronts, like at home and at work. And so, you bring a really unique lens for business coaching. So how do you help parents kind of apply the tools that they may have learned or strategies they've learned in their work to productivity at home?
Yeah. The way you describe it is so, like it's so poignant because I feel like there is this whole new way that you look at work and this whole new way that you look at your time overall. Having to like, I almost feel like you have to reapply, your tools and your skill sets and kind of, make them translate. And so I love this question, but it's also like it feels so natural of like how I work because I would help people so much in the frame of business coaching, of optimizing your systems and your strategies and your approach and maximizing your time. And so when I think about it, I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course. Like, isn't this all of the things you also need to do in your personal life, managing your family time and showing up more present and like fully engaged even in those spaces?" So yeah, it definitely feels like a natural piece, but the stem, the root of it, and I'm always so preoccupied with the root cause. I think the root of it is clarity, like really figuring out like what is it that you want, what are you trying to create, what's most important. And especially when I talk about harmony so much, it's acknowledging like now with an expanded family with children that might look really different than what you thought it was going to look like in the past, and giving yourself that space and freedom really to create what you want for yourself, like actually think about what that new vision is that you're working towards so that we can map out together how to get you there.
I love it. I love it. We had a podcast too with Jess Ringenberg. You'll have to check out that episode as
Yeah.
well to our listeners. But she had mentioned, shedding the shoulds. Like there's so much
Mm,
pressure from society on all of the things that we should do when we return to work or
mm,
should do for our family. And
yeah.
it really is more of like that mindset of like reinvention. Like you're never gonna go back to the way that things were because
Mm,
you have another person. There's
yeah.
no way that I mean, we could talk about fitting into the jeans from high school or college, sure, like, that's one thing,
Mm,
but
yeah.
talking about, like, lifestyle systems that are now being changed. So I love that you bring that perspective in too about, it's that reinvention of, like, what do you want it to look like now, and knowing that you can take the steps to then get there. Um,
Yeah.
one of the
I
oth
love that.
yeah, one
Sorry. I love what you said about the shoulds because that to me in coaching is kind of like one of those red flag, maybe a yellow flag word is when someone's putting that unnecessary weight on themselves of what you should do. It's like that's something to plug into to make sure and honestly, to make sure, like, where is the should even coming from? Because sometimes it's a societal weight, it's a weight from friends, families, people you're hanging around with, like, the weight isn't even from you. So
Mhm.
shedding it if you can.
Yeah, and, like, think about too, like, what opportunities may you be missing out on if you're limited
Mm,
by the shoulds too, right? Like, as a mom of 6, should I be working? Should I be hosting a podcast?
mm,
Should I be doing these things, or should I be spending more time with my kid? Like, whatever preconception
mm,
that people have, right?
yeah,
Where it maybe implicitly feels like one has to suffer versus how
yeah,
it may look different than how they're currently managing life. And so
mm,
and knowing that everyone does things differently, whether you have 1 children, 6 children, no children, um, life
yeah,
life ebbs and flows. Um,
yeah,
one of the other things that kind of comes to mind is this idea that, like, just task management when it comes to, like,
mm,
productivity, right? Of like, "Oh, if I have my checklist, I gotta get all of this stuff done for home, I gotta get
mm,
stuff done for work." Um,
yeah,
and one of the things that I think about is like, okay, what does mom actually have to do? What
yeah,
can I delegate or what can I automate? And so one of
yeah,
the things that we had talked about before was, those high cost per hour tasks for parents. And so
mm,
what are some ways that they could maybe offload or automate them?
yeah. That's a loaded question to me because there's so many points that kind of like stem off of that.
Yeah.
I think with the like cost per hour, so many people aren't even aware of like, are they tracking? Are they paying attention to, like you said, when you said that task list, that made me laugh because it's just like, oh, we load those task lists
Yeah. It never
so
ends.
much.
It keeps growing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that's one thing that stands out is like, really paying attention to how much we're doing, how realistic. Does everything need to be on us? And also, when we're thinking about, cost per hour things, is it really all just in time? That's a watch out. Is it in energy? Is it in money? Are there things that we're burning in other ways? And the energy is a big one because when we're loading up those task lists and thinking, this is everything I'm going to get done, like, is that really the most sustainable way for you to move forward? So those are just some of the things that are sparked for me when you asked. But coming back to how to offload, I think once you really are paying attention to what you're doing and figure out what those things that can be offloaded are, I think it's also important. That's one opportunity to look at a lens outside of yourself because even if I think like, "Oh, yeah, it would be great for me not to do X thing," or it's draining or whatever it is, also thinking about, like, for those of us in business, what would your clients say? Because sometimes it's coming from this place of, like, running away from a growth opportunity or something, like, we could lean into to expand ourselves. And so if your clients say, like this comes up all the time, their number one thing, oh my gosh, you're such an expert. I love connecting with you. I love talking to you. And the number one thing the entrepreneur is trying to offload is, oh, I don't want to make those sales calls. Like, I don't want to call and like do that outreach and do the past check-ins with past clients. And it's like, well, if that's the number one thing that people love about you and come to you for, like, let's make some smart decisions in your business about how to maximize that and that truly is a cost. When we're talking about cost, it's a money generating activity that's supportive to your business. So don't put somebody else in that seat, but really think about how are you freeing up time with maybe administrative pieces or marketing pieces that you could delegate to expand the money generating parts. um, yeah, and I know that you are working on all the things and have like AI magic to support parents in that area of just, leaning into more tools and techniques and technology that can really be supportive in a meaningful way. I love that.
I love that you bring that up too of like leaning into your strengths and like the piece that makes you money. Like that would be
Mm,
that seems silly when you take a step back to be like, oh, I want to offload this, but it's like, well, that's how your business is like thriving is when you do
yeah,
this. And so I think one of the comparisons that I thought of in like the family, you know, I always think of dinner time, which is always like this chaotic and crazy time. And I like,
mm,
you know how easy it is to just be like, okay, we're gonna order pizza in, or
yeah,
we're gonna like order Uber, or we're gonna go out, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, like, well, maybe since I value like that family time, maybe I just involve my kids in that. And it takes long,
yeah,
but like that's like the bread and butter. Like we can work in the math. Like I'm a teacher, so I'm like, we can work in math and measurement
yeah,
and mixing a little bit of chemistry, like what's gonna happen
yeah,
pizza dough if we make pizza or something. But like what a great comparison too to like maybe lean into those moments that are most valuable to you at home and
mm,
try to incorporate your kids if it does feel like energy draining of like, oh my gosh, we have dinner
yeah.
up again. Well, guess what? Dinner happens every night. So that it has to be
Very
taken care
true.
of one way or the other. So maybe leaning into that with a different frame of mind can also be helpful.
Mindset is everything, and I love the way you describe that because that feeling of you're when you're really pushing something and you feel so like it's so forced, I always am thinking about where is the opportunity to create more ease and flow. And that's such a great example of just like something you go through every day. And rather than looking at it and thinking, oh, that's going to be painful again, we got to get through. Instead
We
of
all
that,
have those
like,
things too where we're like, forget it, we're ordering pizza.
done, done. But that is even such a great point too, because like when we go back to the last question about the time, and it's like, hey, sometimes there's going to be a strategic decision you make where you say, you know what, freeing up that hour today is going to enable me to pour myself in to this money generating activity, and it's not going to be every night. But one time a week, this is how I'm choosing. And I think there's power in taking a step back and making the decision. And even sharing that with your family. Like maybe everyone gets on board and you all know, hey, Tuesday night is when we collaborate and make the dinner together and we learn and we, touch the food and have that experience and taste new things. And it becomes something to look forward to easier rather than this like tense pain point that you're dreading.
Yeah. No, I love that. We started well, we've done pizza night on Fridays for a super long time in our family
Yeah,
household. We just recently switched it to make your own, and so we go to, like,
so
Sam's Club,
fun.
buy, like, all of the pizza crusts, and then we just make our own
Yeah,
pizza on Fridays, which is, like, saves us money in the long run, and they can be more creative, and we can try other things. Um,
I love that.
Figuring out the system that works for you and your family, and I love that kind of piece that you mentioned too about the choice. Like, okay, I'm
Mm,
intentionally choosing that this is what we're doing so that it also doesn't feel like, oh, I'm the weight of maybe something
yeah.
you didn't choose. So, I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about how we can make work and parenthood more visible to our kids because especially
Mm,
in this day and age, everything feels a little bit separate, even though the lines are blurred if we're working remote or um,
yeah,
just this age of technology where we're using similar tools in school and also at, at home
good point.
for work. And so how do you suggest that we involve our kids in our work in meaningful and age appropriate ways?
I love that. Yeah, that's a really good point about the tools we use. People don't know if we're working on our phone. Are we are we just scrolling? What's going on there? But the age appropriate ways, it comes up first off, like with my clients, it comes up a lot. Um, Again, something connected to that reflectiveness of I feel like your babies, all 6 of those babies are like your little babies, and sometimes I find that parents have a hard time recognizing like, "Oh, yeah, like, they're 8 now, like, can't they be doing more? Like, can't they be more hands-on? Are there intentional ways that you could, bring them into what you're doing and add that visibility?" But like brainstorming with people, they just come up with the coolest things. And one of my clients, for example, had her son manage like a little she needed to do like a collaboration thing and wanted to like engage with her clients. They did a little social media contest and like it was like a chalk art contest where like design your thing. He did like the chalk art and like they spent an afternoon like working on it together as a family, posted on social and announced that they were going to be doing this like client contest. Such a cool opportunity to like be involved and like really like leading this little piece of this tiny piece of the business, but just adding fun. And a lot of her clients had kids as well. So it was like this fun thing in the summer to just boost engagement. People could post their art and tag them and, have a little fun and competition with it. So just even with that, recognizing age appropriate things, recognizing what they like, and how can you, if that's something that they're already doing, how can you incorporate it in their business, in your business? But also, it's fun to talk to other people in this space and just recognize that when we do that and look for those opportunities to make things easier, make things flow more naturally, their visibility into that is just powerful. Like it helps them to be more empathetic with you when you are, off doing your thing and, need to be away from them. It just gives them some visibility into like, oh yeah, that's what mom does. That's what dad's doing. He's helping those families. They're investing in other people, investing in the community, like making a difference in some way. And then especially my lens through HR, like seeing how powerful that is. I work with people sometimes when they haven't had enough exposure. And sometimes people come to me as adults and like, I don't know what I want to, I haven't done a lot of things. I haven't had exposure to these different areas. And so to, as a child already have like, hey, marketing, like that's cool. I want to learn more about that. Just have that exposure from a young age is a really powerful opportunity.
Yeah, I love that because like the teacher part of me, I'm like, yes, the curiosity, right? Like they
Yeah,
don't know. And in my previous venture, I had co-founded an ed tech company and I had my kids helping me pack school supply boxes per quarter
yeah,
that we sent to families. And it was one of those moments that like we got to connect, but it was also like organization and systems practice for them of like,
yeah.
okay, this is the quantity that goes in each box. This is how we pack it so that nothing gets broken. Um,
Mm,
the sort of care that they had for their classmates too, because of course they were in the program.
yeah,
But also that kind of like entrepreneurial bug of like, oh, it's okay to ask questions, or I can, push
mm,
limits, or, think creatively or problems.
mm,
Those are all really key skills that oftentimes aren't practiced enough
yeah,
in like real world context. And so
exactly.
those are great opportunities for kiddos too to have a little bit of participation and practice in a controlled or like supervised boundaried way. I guess I don't want to like use
Yeah.
the wrong word there, but another point of this is like also being able to see parents outside of the context of parenting, right? Like
Mm,
your kids are at school all day, if you're at work all day and you come together and it's like parenting family time, which is
mm,
uh,
yeah,
why do you think it also matters that kids can see how their parents, spend time outside of that family time?
yeah. So many reasons I can think of, but one that shines through is, when you really think about exactly what you were saying, like these little future adults that we're like putting
Right.
so much into and like pouring ourselves into. But when you think of it as like, this person who's going to go off into the world and do their own thing and live their own life, what a powerful positioning for their relationship of what it is to work and contribute and what that could mean. Like it just is really an eye-opening opportunity for them to not dread this idea of what work is as something to shy away from and that pulls you away from family. And when you think about like all of the definitions we could get into as this like miserable thing, you know,
Like, okay,
really
I don't know, do we wanna do this when I get older, or am I good just living at home,
exactly. And then like the things you're describing now and how there's so much like creativity and expansiveness and fun and joy and community that you can build into to what work is. For me, that just shifts it from potentially being this thing that's kind of like dreaded and miserable and that they don't want to do and altering it into highlighting like the positive, really exciting parts that they're drawn to and compelled to just kind of explore. So it completely redefines it if we let it.
I love that. I love that. Redefining work for our
Yeah.
generations of
Mhm.
society.
Yeah.
I want to kind of close up with some like practical tips. Like, okay, I've
Yeah.
talked a lot about like, okay, here's some ideas for what you can do. Here's how we can kind of fill the gap or things to be thinking about mindset wise. But
Yeah.
what are some practical strategies for parents to be more intentional with their time? I'm
Mm.
thinking like especially in toddlerhood when they have a lot
Mm.
of needs and are very dependent. Uh, but it could be really for any stage. So any tips or strategies for parents that are just looking to be more intentional or proactive with their time?
Yeah. Then It's especially true when you're talking about those toddler stages because it is so time intensive, right? You're doing so much, every little part of their managing their day. Um, and yet you have so much when we're talking about your own personal aspirations, your well-being, and not neglecting yourself. There's so much there to pay attention to as well. And so when we were talking earlier about that task list, the dread, the maybe dreaded task list, and how long it gets, what this question makes me think is just the opportunity to shift perspective. And sometimes I like to think of it as, when I'm 80 and I look back on this season of life, what will I wish that I was focused on? It's not going to be those details, those things that we nitpick about ourselves and our days. It's going to be a different lens and maybe more quality focused, relationship driven. And so especially because so many people can stuff their to-do list to the gills. I like just taking that outside perspective and thinking, when you're 80 and look back on this season, what is it? What is the one thing that you really want to prioritize just to help yourself take a step out? And then the other part of that is the gifts and like leaning into your gifts, I think is so important. And maybe now more than ever in a society of like social media and seeing what other people are doing and comparing so much, so often that you can like look inward and figure out like, okay, but my gift is, and this is where I need to shine. Letting that happen and also self-managing so that we don't get so empathetic to the point that we are burning ourselves out and letting other people control our schedules for us, like really doing that. Um, that's definitely a the big 2 things, I would say to focus on.
Really powerful. I think too that that perspective of when I'm 80 and I'm looking back on this season, uh,
Mm,
I want to take that one step further and be like,
mm,
what does it mean to honor this season that you're currently in while
mm,
also nurturing that ambition when it comes
mm.
to work?
Yeah, yeah. And there's beauty in allowing yourself to honor. I go back to the clarity, like actually giving yourself that opportunity to define. I think sometimes we're running and so busy, and you with the 6 kids and schedules to manage and meals to be made and all of the different pieces, like you could absolutely run away with that and never get to that like strategic high level place in your day where you're thinking about what does it really look like for me to honor this this space in my life, this season. What does that even look like? And so a lot of times it's even just pausing for long enough to ask the question and come up with an intentional answer, can be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of it too, like kind of like backwards mapping, right? Like if by the time
Mm,
80 and like
mm,
maybe you really want to, like for me, I would say like I really value like that connection. Like I hope that my kids would come home for like holiday
yeah,
or something with their family. Like I hope we always have a full dinner table. Uh,
yeah,
and so then it's also like, okay, well, the project management, okay, if that's the goal, right? Like, what do I need to do right now while
mm,
they're young to kind of like plant the seed? How does
mm,
it to be nurtured and grown over time as they're teenagers? We're not quite there yet, but it's coming. And then young adulthood and things like, how can we continue to nurture that relationship? And so maybe like start with the question and reflection and then be like, okay, well, then what is actually the top of my priority list today? Is going to be to sit down and like connect with my kids or whatever that could be for you, right?
yeah,
The dishes can wait till tomorrow. The laundry can wait
yeah,
till 2 days. Like, okay, we'll have laundry mountain, but it'll be okay. We'll get through it.
yeah,
And so I think that's a great perspective just to kind of think through what is it truly that we want from our life? Like, what is it that we value and
mm.
we'll look back on? Um, that's super powerful. That's super.
And creating that, like when you're talking about that, like isn't that so alluring to now figure out, like, how are you gonna loop in your kids? How are you gonna bring them in for that opportunity to just let them know, "Hey, I love my work and I love what I'm building in my business, and you are also so high. You are my priority as well." And so we think so much about this idea of balance that can feel like this pressure, but showing them through example that no, like you can actually have these competing things that are really important and meaningful in your world, and you can design a life where they work.
Yeah, they can exist together. We're too far along in society to say you have to have this or that. Like you can have,
Mm,
it just may look different than how it has historically, and thank
yeah,
goodness for that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. There you
yeah.
go.
Well, to kind of close us out, we do have a few questions that were written in to the Launch Family community, so to our parenting guide called Emmy. So I want to just get your take on a couple of these real quick before we go. So the first
Yeah.
question is, how can I stay ambitious without feeling like I'm missing out on my kids' early years? So how do you maybe balance that drive with presence? Is extension of the last conversation too. But
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
families?
Yeah. Um, it's so funny because I feel like sometimes we think of work defined in this like corporate context. So like going back to like the should, we should be doing this, could be doing that, all of that stuff. And so when I'm thinking of this, I'm also thinking of this question as like it makes me think about making ourselves feel guilty when we're not doing things in a certain way. And so sometimes the being present, I think about sometimes with my son, I need to do the thing. Like sometimes it's like I noticed, for example, over the past weekend, there was something I meant to respond to, and we were playing, and I kept feeling the pull, like, oh my goodness, I can't focus on being here with him until I address what's going on in my business and just, so I let myself take a note and like open up and just like do really quick like let me make sure I capture this so that I can move on and be fully present for him. And so I think that that's one thing is we almost like make ourselves think that like, oh, like that's not allowed. Like you have to be fully present. You have to be fully present. And so paying attention to yourself and what you need, you know yourself best. And so is making the quick note, is sending the quick text so that you can move on and like be where you need to be going to be the thing for you that's going to allow you to show up the way that you want to be. And so just allowing yourself that permission.
Ah, I love that. The permission slip. I think we've talked about that on another episode too. Is like
Mm,
we should be writing ourselves way more permission slips than we have.
I should.
And this piece of like that feeling of guilt of like, oh, I should be more present, or like if
Mhm.
this is like taking your cognitive load, whether you handle it or not, like get it off
Yeah.
your plate, like put it down
Mm,
somewhere else and come back to it so
yeah.
you can be there. So the next question is, I feel guilty. Here we go. When I shortcuts like food delivery or screen time, but I'm
Mm.
just so exhausted. So what's your take on guilt and giving ourselves grace?
Yeah. I feel like, oh, we feel it all the time, but hopefully the awareness of what you're buying back time for and when you're doing it, hopefully that helps because once you're aware, hey, I'm freeing up this hour ordering meal delivery on X day, not all the time, but like allowing yourself. Hopefully that frees up the space that you're putting in being guilty, on just acknowledging, "Oh, no, the reason like the connection to your why. Also, the reason I'm doing it is, oh, the money I'll generate by working that hour, intentionally and consistently will have a vacation in the summer. And that's going to be more meaningful than, me doing the meal 7 days a week. Like in the long run, this is where things are going to make up and make sense and fall into order because they're still connected to your why and to your values.
I love that point too of like those decisions are we can make those decisions and priority judgments based off of our values and our why, right? Like it all kind of comes back
Mhm.
to that.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I just want to thank you so much for, joining for the conversation today and your authenticity, wisdom, and lived experience. The work that you do helping parents build lives that are not only productive, but also like really deeply connected and fulfilling. To our listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and check the show notes for Amy's new Working Moms community and more helpful links. Remember that balancing work and parenting isn't about perfection. It's about presence, alignment, and building systems that work for your family. You're doing better than you think, and we're here to support you along the way.